Great to hear that big picture thinking, and that's what we're bringing up next as well. Thinking about impact on businesses and media, and how do we support that, thinking big picture, long term, from an MLS perspective. So I want to bring up Dan Ray and Matt Fowler to talk about thinking big about media in the MLS.
All right, so far, everyone who's come up has had to learn the clicker, so I'm next. I'm Dan Ray. I am the Director of Product Development for California Regional MLS.
Matt Fowler, Executive Director of Triangle MLS, North Carolina.
I'm also I sit in Greensboro, North Carolina. I work in California. The thing we have in common that had us start having this conversation is we're both implementing a third-party product called Welcome Mat, which hosts and streams real estate video. I'm really eager to see how that translates to the big screen. This is their website.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, any glitchiness you see in that is about my capture. On their website, the playback is like buttery smooth. We promised them this wouldn't be an ad for Welcome Mat, but they're pretty cool. You should check them out.
But it is.
And their mission is to put video on every listing in the country. And in fact, that is strongly called for by consumers on both sides of the transaction. And if you think about the content in your MLS, I think we all have to tell the truth that we're lagging this demand very badly, very badly. And it's just time for us to do some new thinking about that. Sam said a couple of people ago, not every presentation is all good news, then so this one's kind of where we need to do some rethink. So we both got started to implement this video thing, and we both immediately had the same pain point, which is that none of the ways we can represent video in the MLS are terrific. Actually, you told me you overheard somebody at the bar saying otherwise.
Yeah, they thought we had it covered right now with the links out to wherever.
Right, right. We don't. We're going to unpack that.
And we started talking to Christian about this a long time ago, and he has a complicated presentation. And I'm a recovering real estate appraiser. I have to simplify these things. So he said, look, we just want to make video IDXable.
Yeah.
So that has to go into a hub so you can debrand it and distribute it. And how exactly are we going to do that?
Right.
And the only reason we're not doing it today, as we were talking about earlier, is because a long time ago these files were too big. But they haven't been too big in a long time. But the echo of that past deficiency, exists in the user experience today.
Completely.
That's what we're trying to get rid of.
Completely. And the other big picture item here is as we solve this, we want to solve for other kinds of rich media that are coming down the pipe. We see them coming, and it'd be a shame to make the same, to punt on those the way we did on video back in the day.
Right.
Right. I guess I do want to say, all the smart people in the room who were there then, it's not like you were dumb then. I'm clear we made the right decision then, given what we knew. It was just time to do a rethink. Yeah?
Yeah, for sure, it's changed.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so what's the matter with virtual tour URL fields? Well, the kind of core of the problem is that it conflates content type and use case. I assert that as the payload definition, we should be agnostic about the content of the video. We shouldn't assert that it's a virtual tour. In fact, it could be any number of things. If you look at really high-end single property websites, they're using video for all kinds of stuff, right?
Yep.
Profile of the neighborhood, welcome from the HOA, who knows what. Could be any sorts of things. And to support those other kinds of videos, organizations are adding more pairs of virtual tour URL fields. CRMLS has 2. I happen to know Trestle has 3. Who has more than one pair of those in your data?
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then a data consumer is getting several video links, but doesn't know how to label them for the consumer. They're all kind of called virtual tour. It's not great to conflate what the thing is and how to render it with what it's being used for. So, okay, media resource. Here's the thing. I like that we were forward thinking enough not to just call it the photo resource. That was smart, but if we tell the truth about it, it's very much a photo resource. It's got things like photo width, photo height, photo of, order, right? It's clearly meant to describe a stack of photos. But you can see some places we took a swing at it they just need updating. The media category field, the enum has the same problem as virtual tour URL. It has values like branded virtual tour, unbranded virtual tour, video. I'd rather it not do that, right? Plus, it doesn't contain a bunch of things that we'll talk about later that could be in the future. And then the media type enum, first of all, it's just full of file types, right? You wouldn't even call them MIME types, I don't think. They're just sort of names of, they're like file extensions. Which on one hand, as I've said here, implies there's a downloadable. I don't see that in the future. I think this stuff's always going to get streamed from third-party vendors. I can't imagine an MLS vendor standing up video streaming as a native feature. It's kind of hard to picture. But there's a ton of stuff like that happening in the third-party space. So do I need to know what the file type is so I can give it a file extension when I download it? Probably not. I would say that's probably obsolete. And gonna have to get expanded. If we're really gonna do that, every time a new thing comes along, we'll have to add enums to it, and I would say the value of that is not so strong. And then this was something you brought up. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so there are auto-chaptering elements that this particular vendor has a patent on. So you've seen this online where little ticks under on the play progress bar are added. In this context, they're usually room names. When you walk into the kitchen, the first frame says kitchen, so you can search by kitchen. The chaptering data, we don't have a place to put that in the standards, and also we don't have a place to put things like analytics. Right. One of the driving reasons to bring media into the MLS compilation in the first place is so we don't lose those viewer counts, right, linger times, all of those analytics that we now have to pay for on some foreign video content site. Bringing it into the MLS makes those analytics accessible now and potentially shareable through an API like we're talking about in the Internet Tracking Workgroup. Right. So, adding another media type, adding the information about the media type, this is really just an all-day commercial maybe for Amy, because this is content that can be monetized and redistributed out through proper channels, adding, an enormous video library and the analytics that go along with that feels valuable to me going forward.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
There you go. But of course, the problem is then if we have the chaptering data from one vendor, we're going to want another vendor's chaptering data to be standard with that.
Exactly.
So we got to think about how to do that. And then the fact is, other rich media types are going to have their own metadata requirements. I've played around with 360 cameras, right, that have lenses on both sides, and the video payload of that varies a lot from camera vendor to camera vendor, and the player has to be configured to know what it's looking at so it can stitch together the world coherently. Right, so that kind of payload, and it's not reliably delivered in the video's metadata itself. Ugh. So the player has to be configured with that, so that configuration has to come with, just a link to the video doesn't cut it. So there's a lot to think through as we think about other kinds of rich media we might want to do. It leaves us with the question, like, does the media resource get a whole bunch of new fields that are nulled out in a lot of cases, depending on what kind of payload it is? That's kind of ugly, but maybe it's the way. Point is, we really need data dictionary and probably R&D to do some thinking about this. It's time to dig back into these questions. While we're there are a couple of things we really ought to take down. We really ought to knock out some big problems with media, and that is permissions. I really loved Michael Wurzer talked about the API add edit could support the IP chain on the way in. Killer. It should support it on the way out too. Right? We can talk about who owns what kind of content, what permissions are available in them. We have an issue where people sometimes upload floor plans that they got from the builder, but they don't have rights to that. It's exactly the same compliance problem as if they uploaded somebody else's photo. Right? So, but if they could express inside the payload around that particular media item, well, all right, this belongs to that person, I certify I have permission, that'd be a whole different thing. That's kind of about ownership and copyright. I jumped ahead. The thing about permissions is that as we said earlier this week, there is this public-private field that's totally helpful for turning off photos when a sale happens. It's all really good. But The documents use case, actually permissions isn't binary. If we're going to be complete about documents, there are documents that can go out IDX, there are documents that need to stay within agents, and there are documents that need to stay within parties to a transaction. So there's actually 3 levels of permissioning around documents. So our current solution there doesn't solve for that at all, which is part of why nobody's doing it on API, so we can't express the permissions properly. So these are just things we also ought to think about as we're taking a new cut at the media resource. But I will tell you, as a product person, I start to kind of vibrate when I think about if we get this really solved, because there's so many cool things vendors could do. I talked about 360 video. We're talking with a vendor who's doing audio tours. Like the agent can attach the chunk of audio to each photo, right? Welcome to the great room. Look how great it is.
What you would say if you were walking through the room with them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. One use case is like, thanks for coming to the open house, pull out your phone. It'll walk you around the house, right? But I want those pieces of audio to be payload that can come down to you vendors who make websites. The point of all of this is that it's sticky for consumers. Bigger engagement's better for you, better for the seller. A richer experience is better for the buyer. This is all about enhancing our ability to help people buy and sell houses. That's the bottom line of all of it, right? VR and AR, dollhouse kind of stuff. You can imagine walking around a floor plan, walking around a full layout of the house, getting a sense of what it feels like. My wife came to me last week and said, I had a cool idea. What if you could go to a custom home builder and they could like put goggles on you and put you in the house and you could say, oh, let me try the kitchen layout this way. Make those windows floor to ceiling, right? And you could lay it all out around you. And I was like, killer idea. Somebody should do that. I'm not going to do anything with it.
No.
I invite you.
But they were just talking about floor plans too, to cut you off there, Dan. I mean, this is really tracking some of the sessions before.
Completely. I had a whole thing I was going to say about floor plans, but forget it. Kubicasa said it.
Yeah.
All the stuff they said, yes, but it's probably going to need support in data dictionary. And who knows what else? Once we've really solved the problem of getting our media content out of photo, then sky's the limit. There's all kinds of cool stuff people can do. All right, so that's our pitch. It is time for a rethink of that. We stand ready, I think, to support the process of getting those concepts in front of R&D and data dictionary, and we look forward to a future of big media.
And we're rolling out this. I don't know what your schedule is, Dan. Our email to subscribers went out today. I think go live is next Friday. So, we're the first, I think, so we'll let you know how that goes.
We're right behind you. Our integrations are live on staging, and the last bit of work is in Welcome At's sprint this week. So we're real close.
Keep an eye on that.
Yep. All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.